A single drop of acid, a small vial of liquid. In the hands of most people, it would be nothing remarkable. But in the hands of a teenage boy in Nazi-occupied Paris, it became the difference between life and death for thousands. In one cramped attic laboratory in 1943, a 17-year-old Jewish boy stared at the clock as exhaustion threatened to overtake him. Calculating quietly to himself, he whispered, "In 1 hour, I make 30 blank documents. If I sleep 1 hour, 30 people die." His name was Adolfo Kaminsky, and this is the story of how a teenage chemist with no formal training outmaneuvered the Third Reich and saved 14,000 lives with nothing but ink, paper, and an unshakable determination to resist. Before the war, Adolfo Kaminsky was just an ordinary boy with an extraordinary curiosity. Born in Argentina to Russian Jewish refugees, he moved to France when he was only 7 years old. By 15, he was working in a dye shop, where what seemed like a mundane job sparked a lifelong fascination. "I discovered the magic of stain removal," he would later recall. He became obsessed with the chemistry of colors, spending hours experimenting with different compounds and reactions. When he took a job testing butterfat quality at a dairy factory, no one could have predicted that this ordinary position would unlock the key to saving thousands of lives. It was here that Kaminsky made a discovery that would change everything. Lactic acid, a simple compound found in sour milk, could dissolve Waterman blue ink, the supposedly indelible ink favored by Nazi bureaucrats for their official documents. What might have remained an interesting chemical curiosity in peacetime became a powerful weapon in the hands of a teenager facing the Nazi occupation of France. In 1943, Kaminsky's own family was arrested and sent to Drancy, a transit camp on the outskirts of Paris. By sheer luck and bureaucratic complexity, Argentina, where Adolfo was born, was then neutral in the war. The family was released. Many would have used this miracle as a chance to flee, to save themselves. Instead, Kaminsky chose to stay and fight. When a member of the French resistance learned of his chemical knowledge, they asked if he could remove the blue Jewish stamp that marked Jewish identity papers. "Can you do it?" they asked. "I'll try," was all he said. What followed was a lifetime compressed into months. Working in a hidden laboratory, Kaminsky assembled a forger's workshop unlike any other. A pipe became a tool for creating official seals. Bicycle tires were melted down to create rubber stamps. A sewing machine carefully perforated documents to match government specifications. His scientific mind approached each problem methodically, finding ingenious solutions with whatever materials he could salvage. Susie Shidloff, an art student who joined his clandestine operation, meticulously replicated official stamps by hand. Together, they created a production line of salvation, crafting birth certificates, ration cards, baptismal records. Any document that could help a Jewish person escape detection. But in the spring of 1943, Kaminsky faced his most daunting challenge yet. Word reached the resistance that 300 Jewish children were slated for deportation within days. To save them, Kaminsky's team would need to produce 900 different documents, birth certificates, food ration cards, identity papers, in just 3 days. For 72 hours, Kaminsky did not sleep. As exhaustion clouded his vision and his hands began to tremble, he fought against his body's demands for rest. "The children are waiting," he reminded himself and his team whenever they faltered. In his mind, the equation was simple and brutal. Every minute spent sleeping meant another life lost. When the operation was finally complete, all 300 children escaped deportation, spirited away to convents and rural safe houses throughout France. It was a victory purchased with sleepless nights and the constant fear of discovery. But for Kaminsky, it was worth every moment of suffering. His forgeries were masterpieces of deception, so precise that years later he would tell an interviewer, "Even I can't tell the difference between my work and the originals." This perfectionism wasn't vanity, it was necessity. A single flaw, a slightly wrong shade of ink, a paper that felt just slightly different to the touch. Any of these could mean death for the person carrying the document. To minimize risks, Kaminsky memorized over 1,500 phone numbers and contacts, refusing to write anything down that could compromise his network if discovered. He worked in silence, letting his hands speak through their creations. "My hands held lives," he once said, "and my silence protected them." When Paris was finally liberated in 1944, many resistance fighters emerged from the shadows to celebrate. But Adolfo Kaminsky wasn't among them. For him, the work wasn't finished. It had only just begun. He continued his forgery operations, now helping Jewish refugees reach Palestine, then aiding Algerian independence fighters during France's colonial war, and later assisting draft dodgers protesting the Vietnam War. For decades, he lived a double life. By day, he worked as a commercial photographer, even employed by the French government as a military photographer, ironically using this position to document atrocities in Algeria committed by the very government that employed him. By night, he continued his forgery work, never accepting payment for his services. Money, he explained, would have soiled my ideals. Few knew that this quiet man with ink-stained fingers had saved thousands of lives. Even fewer knew that behind the forger was also an artist. His haunting post-war photographs, shadowy portraits of workers, immigrants, and Parisian streets, revealed the soul behind the technician. These images, with their interplay of light and darkness, mirrored the duality of his own existence, living simultaneously in the open world and in the shadows. What drove this man to dedicate his life to strangers? When asked years later, Kaminsky's answer was simple. I did what I had to do. When human lives are endangered, you don't ask why they're in danger before helping. His moral compass never wavered, even as the politics and conflicts around him shifted through the decades. In one of history's cruel ironies, the same bureaucracy that systematically murdered millions briefly protected Kaminsky's own family because of their Argentinian connection. As he later remarked with quiet wisdom, fate is a forger too. Though he would eventually receive medals for his resistance work, including the prestigious Médaille de la Résistance, Kaminsky stored these honors unceremoniously in a suitcase under his bed. When asked why he hid them, his response cut to the heart of the man. The real reward was saving lives. In 2023, Adolfo Kaminsky died at the age of 97, having witnessed nearly a century of humanity's darkest hours and brightest possibilities. His daughter Sarah ensured his story would outlive him by writing his biography, The Forger of Paris, preserving the legacy of a man who had spent his life ensuring others could have a future. Remember that teenage boy who refused to sleep while children waited for their chance at life? In that small Parisian attic, as his vision blurred and his hands trembled, not from fear, but from exhaustion, Adolfo Kaminsky demonstrated that resistance isn't always loud proclamations or dramatic acts of sabotage. Sometimes resistance is the quiet scratch of a pen altering a birth date, the careful application of a hand-carved stamp, or the subtle chemistry that dissolves one identity to create another. With ordinary skills and extraordinary courage, one person transformed chemistry into compassion. The teenage forger who once whispered, "If I sleep, people die," can finally rest. But his message remains, a quiet call to all of us. What ordinary skills do you possess? And how might they become extraordinary in the service of others? In the end, Adolfo Kaminsky's proved that even in history's darkest hours, the human spirit can find ways to rewrite the future.